evening, and we will be sending it out. So I'm going to start recording now. Oh, that's okay. Sandy's second for me. I appreciate it. So good evening, everyone. Thank you all for attending the freshman workshop. My name is Danica Walker, and I'm a PATHe counselor with the Pinellas Access to Higher Education program. PATHe, or Pinellas Access to Higher Education, is a collaborative effort between the University of South Florida St. Petersburg campus and the St. Petersburg College. And our goal is to increase the number of students in Pinellas County who are able to attain post-secondary education. And we do so by providing community outreach in ways such as this workshop. We also offer individualized consultations and meetings. So we'll provide additional information as towards how you can get involved with PATHe or how you can reach out to us to have a personal conversation about your individual situations. But I would like to stop and allow the other presenters some time to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Sandy DiCarlo. I'm also a PATHe counselor at the University of South Florida's St. Petersburg campus.
And hi, I'm Charlotte Finnicle. I'm the intern at Pinellas Access to Higher Education, and I'm a student at St. Petersburg College.
And as a reminder, we ask that you turn off your cameras and your microphones. If you have questions throughout the presentation, you can add them in the chat and we'll get to them, as well as there will be some time at the end of the presentation to ask questions, and we will be happy to answer all the questions. So for today's workshop, we have an agenda that I want to go over with you all briefly so that you know what is to come. So we'll be discussing why you should discuss college and high school. We'll also talk about the various higher education options that are available and the admissions requirements and resources that are available. We will talk about earning college credit while in high school and the 9th grade checklist, which are things that you can do now to start preparing for college. And I am responsible for the very first presentation, so I will start that right now. Let me share my screen. It's being wonky. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, so why we should discuss college while in 9th grade. So as I mentioned, my name is Danica Walker, and today we'll be talking about the importance of having these conversations while you're in high school, specifically why you should have these conversations while you're in 9th grade, or while your child is in 9th grade. So one of the reasons that it's important to begin these conversations is to maintain all of your options. There are a variety of different types of colleges. There are a variety of different types of admissions requirements that go into these colleges, and we want to make sure that you're able to get into the college of your choice. So it's important to understand that when you are starting to apply to college, which again may seem very far off, that the schools that have competitive admission standards will be looking at your high school GPA, and that high school GPA does not start when you're a junior or start when you're a senior. They're going to be looking at your GPA from 9th grade on. So it's important to make sure that you're keeping up with your grades as well as maintaining good study habits. So now is a good time to evaluate how you're studying and how you're doing your homework to ensure that the skills or the things that you need to be successful are currently happening as a 9th grader. The next reason is because we want you to have an idea of the type of school that you may want to go to, and sometimes that requires understanding what kind of career may be of interest to you. So talking with those around you now, it's important to start asking questions around how they feel about their work, what type of work do they do, and how they got into it. It's also important to note that while you don't need to make these decisions immediately, you don't need to know as a freshman what type of career you want to have at 25, 30 years old. It's important to begin the process of considering what your interests are, what you like to do, and what you may want to do. The process for career exploration is a pretty in-depth process, meaning it takes the time to consider who you are and what you want, but it also takes time to consider what else is out there. So starting these conversations will get you on the path of what else is out there and what may be available to you. A third reason, and we'll talk a little bit more about this a little later, is discussing rigorous courses. So there are a wide variety of rigorous courses, and those are just classes that are a little harder than the average class. So it's important to talk with guidance counselors, and if you are a student, talking with your parents. If you're a parent, talking with your students about the interest in taking rigorous classes. So talking about, one, which types of classes are available. Two, discussing the timeline in which you may want to take these classes. So, which semester or which school year will be the best for you. And then the third thing that's equally as important, and I don't know that everyone talks about this, but the preparation for a rigorous course. It's important to ask yourself and to talk with others around if you're ready to take these classes, because some classes, such as dual enrollment, may have a long-standing impact that everyone's not always aware of. And again, we'll get more into rigorous courses a little bit later in the session. And then the fourth, which is, again, very important, is discussing your current college goals. So sometimes we make plans and we have an idea in our head about what we may want to do, whether you're a parent or a student, but we don't always share that information with others. So it's important to stay on the same page and know, okay, as a parent, this is what my child wants to do. As a child, this is what my parent has an expectation of me. And I say that because when we start to talk about making college plans and making college decisions, things that go into them are, how are you going to pay for college? Is the expectation that the parent is going to pay everything? Is there an expectation that there will be no money provided from the parent? Another thing to consider is distance. I once had a conversation with a relative about college planning, and something that was said to me that I'll never forget is, we were talking about where her daughter could go. And the mother said, well, she can go far, but not too far. What does that mean? Because my idea of far may be different than her idea of far. So being very direct and understanding, this is what I think is acceptable, or this is what I want, and being able to align those ideas and goals with each other. And then, as I mentioned before, we are PATHe. So one of our colleagues is not with us today, but this is the PATHe team. There's Charlene Ajimine, Sandy DiCarlo, and myself. And there are a variety of ways that you all can contact us. So one of them is we have an Instagram page. We love to share information. Right now we're sharing a lot of information around scholarship opportunities. So you can follow us on Instagram at plan_your_PATHe. There's also our website. And then you can also reach out to us at usfsp-path@usf.edu. And now I'm going to turn it over.
Thanks, Danica. I'll take it from here. So I am Sandy DiCarlo, another PATHe counselor. And again, PATHe is here as a resource for Pinellas County residents, students, their family members. We're really just consultants for the county regarding planning for after graduation. So after tonight, if you do have questions or a little bit down the road you want to reach out, feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to start by talking about just all the options that your students have after high school. So let me share my screen. Okay, so a lot of times as a PATHe counselor and we're out in the community, we try to find the right verbiage to use so everybody's understanding. People talk about higher education and sometimes that's a little confusing. We talk about universities, we talk about colleges. PATHe counselors have just really used the term college to talk about any extended education beyond high school. It's a lot easier than always using different terms. So we're going to just use the word college to talk about any continued education after high school. So there are three main types of education once you've got your high school diploma. One being vocational technical schools, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. There are 2-year colleges and 4-year universities. So today we just want to get you familiar with all the options so you and your families can make the best choice that's a good fit for you, the student. So first I want to look at vocational and technical schools. What they are, they give you very focused job-specific training. Most of them are short term. They could be as short as 6 months or maybe even a little bit less, up to 2 years. So again, it's very specific training on a hands-on type skill. The costs vary depending on the length of the program. Usually you're paying per a credit hour, so the number of hours that it takes to complete the program will then determine what the cost of those programs are. Instead of a diploma, you usually graduate with a certificate or a certification. Some of the vocational programs are tied to state licenses or state certifications, so there's an exam after that. Some of the programs, they include things like automotive technology, baking, pastry arts, culinary arts, barbering, cosmetology. There's a whole skin science out there right now. Marine service technology, fixing boat motors, practical nursing, so that would be more of an LPN license. Welding, there's numerous different programs out there. A local example would be Pinellas Technical College or Clearwater Aviation Academy. Those are both local technical colleges, and they prepare you to go right into the workforce. Once you've completed the entire program and you've passed your courses and taken that certification test, you're going to jump right into the job field. So there are a lot of career prep and job assistance in those schools as well. And they are also financial aid eligible. So that's basically the vocational and technical schools. Now with two-year colleges, locally we have St. Petersburg College. There are about 10 campuses all over the county. And the majority of students going to the two-year colleges are working on associate's degrees. Now, there are two kinds of associate degrees, and this is really confusing sometimes. So there's an associate in arts degree and an associate in science degree, and it really doesn't have anything to do with art or science. An associate in arts degree is typically about 20 classes that prepares students to go into a bachelor program. Now, a bachelor's degree is usually around 40 classes, so this would be the first half of a bachelor's degree. Classes include those general education classes like literature and composition and math and humanities and a speech class. And then added to those general classes are the courses that you need to get into the bachelor program's major. So a lot of students will think, well, I'm just going to go to a local school and get my AA degree, and then I'm going to decide what I want to major in. But the fact is, the classes in your AA degree, a lot of them are going to be dependent on that major. So you really want to discover as soon as possible what that major is going to be, so you make sure you're taking the right classes, especially the math classes and the science classes. They may differ depending on if you're going to study psychology, accounting, or engineering. They all require different types of math. So to prevent taking classes you don't need or missing the classes you do need, you really want to decide on what that major is going to be early on in your associate in arts degree. So again, the associate in arts degree, or a lot of people just call it an AA degree, is a stepping stone to get into a bachelor program. Whether you stay at that school where you got the AA and continue into a bachelor program, or you decide you're going to transfer to a different school. Now, as opposed to the AA, the Associate in Science degree, or the AS degree, that's more of a career focus. You still have some of those general education classes, but not as many as an AA. About 2/3 of your Associate in Science degree are going to be career-based classes. Some of the vocational training that we talked about in the previous slide, some of those programs actually articulate into AS degrees. A sample of some of the associate in science degrees are computer programming, funeral services, dental hygiene, Emergency medical services, which is a combination of EMT and paramedic. Nursing. St. Petersburg College has an associate in science degree that prepares you for your registered nurse, or RN certification. Business administration, orthotics and prosthetics technology. So those are the people who are actually building the prosthetics and fitting them to a patient. So these all, as I said, about a third of the classes are general education, but 2/3 of those classes are hands-on skill type classes. And again, it's based on getting you directly into the workforce. AS degrees are not automatically transferable into a bachelor program. It depends on the degree and the program. So you can't guarantee that the AS degree is going to automatically transfer into a bachelor's degree. Again, there's more to it than that, whereas the AA automatically articulates into a bachelor program. Local example would be St. Petersburg College. They offer both the associate in arts degrees as well as the associate in science degrees. And then of course you have four-year universities. Four-year universities offer undergraduate degrees, which are bachelor degrees, but then most of them also offer graduate programs, such as master's degrees or doctorate programs. Four-year universities typically have a lot more research opportunities than a two-year school. A lot of the faculty are required to do extensive research, and therefore the students have opportunities for research as well. There's direct access to those advanced degrees because they are offered at the same institution. Some of the professors have very strong reputations in the field of research because they are required to do research. And there's more program offerings overall because of the different levels of education that are offered at universities. Typically, universities will offer residential halls, but then it depends where you're going. Some of the two-year schools are offering dormitories as well. So again, there really isn't any just black and white template that says this kind of school offers this. You need to do your homework and research what's being offered, because as you go across the country, you're going to find some differences. So again, I just want to show you the different types of higher education credentials that we discussed a little bit. So a certificate or a certification, and the difference is a certificate is just a small group of very specialized classes. A certification is usually includes an exam that you have to pass to be certified in a certain area. So there's a little bit difference between a certificate and a certification, but both of them are basically short-term training. An associate in science degree is a 2 to 3 year program that again gives you a work skill to take directly into the workplace. An associate in arts degree is halfway to a bachelor's degree. It's that first half. Think of it as if you're building a house, you're going to pour that foundation. This is the foundation of a bachelor's degree. And then, of course, a bachelor's degree is known as a 4-year degree. Anything from the bachelor's degree to the certificate is usually thought of as an undergrad student. Once you're in a graduate program or a professional degree, that's where you're talking about master's degrees and doctorate degrees. A master's degree can be anything from I've seen master's degrees at 4 years. Beyond the bachelor's degrees, it really depends. But again, some schools have special programs that may include some of the first year classes for a master's degree as you're finishing up your bachelor's degree. So there is no definitive template that this is what a master's degree is. But master's degrees require that you've completed the bachelor's degree for admission. A doctorate degree is not just for a medical doctor, it's just a higher level of study in a particular field. So you can be a doctor of philosophy, a doctor of anthropology. It's just a higher level skill. And as you go into the higher level, the curriculum gets much more specified into different areas. So again, certificates are the shortest term training, then associate degrees, bachelor degree, master's degree to a doctorate degree. So as far as the three types of education, another big difference is the admission requirements. And so for career and technical schools, you typically just need to have had that high school completion, whether it's a standard high school diploma or a GED, usually doesn't matter, but you have to have completed that requirement of high school. The same with two-year colleges. Two-year colleges sometimes are called community colleges. In Florida, they've taken the name of state colleges, but the admission requirement is that you've completed your high school commitment. Now at a four-year university, typically to enter as a freshman, they're looking at your high school GPA, including your freshman year. So your high school GPA consists of any high school level courses that have been completed. The more I'm getting to know Pinellas County students, I realize that a lot of students are taking high school level classes in middle school. Some are even taking college level classes in middle school. So all of that accumulates into your high school GPA at the time of applying to a university. Standardized test scores. Right now, there's been a lot of publications nationwide, especially with COVID, whether or not universities are going to still require ACT or SAT scores. As of right now, Florida absolutely requires it. They are not waiving those test scores. So when you have the opportunity to take these tests in school, and next year you'll be able to take the PSAT, which is the practice SAT test while you're in school. So I urge you to take it seriously, do some preparation for it, and give it your best shot, because there are scholarship opportunities even from that practice SAT. And it's also going to give you a really good idea of what areas you want to work on when you take the SAT after that. A lot of colleges are also going to ask for a personal resume. So those of you that are already involved in things outside of the classroom, whether it's sports or drama, clubs, student government, maybe you're involved in some things at church or maybe in a neighborhood center, you need to be noting that. Write that down, any awards that you're getting, because those are the types of things that you're going to see, that you're going to want to see on that personal resume. Your GPA and your test scores are two academic measures, but the colleges also want to see what makes you different. So adding those just any extracurricular activities to that resume is really important. And when you're a junior and you're filling out all these things, it's hard to remember back to your freshman year. So you want to make note of those things now, so you've got it all written down somewhere. Freshman year is the great time for you to just start building the resume and adding to it as you go through the next couple of years, because then you've got everything you need when you start applying. Some of the schools are going to require that there's an essay. Again, that essay is to show not only your writing skills, but something about you that makes you stand out. Really easy to Google sample college resumes and you'll see what some of the topics, the common topics are. But again, those writing skills are going to be really important. So if any of your instructors are telling you, you know, don't write like you text or don't write like you email. Take heed of that, because your writing style is going to be really important when you get into college. Some universities may require a portfolio or an audition. If you're looking into going into an area, let's say it's performing arts or the visual arts, they may want to see what kind of talent you have now. So if you are in drama, or if you're in music, or if you're in digital art, again, save some of that work, and so you have it for later. So now we're going to talk about the costs. Right now, and I just used our local schools for an example. So the cost of attendance for a technical vocational school, right now, Pinellas Technical College is $2.92 per credit hour. I know that doesn't say much, but it depends on how many hours those programs are. I talked with a representative last week, and they said the most expensive program at Pinellas Technical is $7,000. So everything is under that, and that's a full 2-year program. So again, you want to consider how long the training will be, and that's going to equal how much the cost is. 2-year schools, right now, St. Petersburg College is $111.75 per credit. Majority of classes are 3 credits, so you're looking at about $335 per class. Again, this is just tuition. USF's tuition is currently $211.19 per credit, which comes to about $633 per class. So again, the average class is 3 credits, and you pay by credit. Now, typically when you register for school, you're going to sign up for so many classes for that semester, and then you're going to pay for that semester. So each semester, you're going to sign up for more classes and pay. So you don't pay for the whole 4 years right at the beginning. You're going to pay per semester. Now, again, the numbers that I have on the screen are only tuition. You also want to think about room and board. Are you going to be living at the school? Is there housing? Do you have to purchase a meal plan? Do you pay utilities, parking expenses? And then you've got books and supplies on top of that. If you're looking at going to school possibly far away, you've got travel expenses as well. And then there's miscellaneous items. You know, do you want to be able to go get a cup of coffee every day? Are you going to eat out with some of your friends? You have a phone bill, those types of things. So all of that goes together with the cost of attendance. And so you want to definitely consider that. And as Danica said, these are conversations that you just want to start having right now, because you don't, as a student, you don't want to assume that your parents have all this covered. And as a parent or a family member, you want to guide your student. If they need to find scholarships and ways to help pay, the earlier they know that, the better the planning can be. Some of the other considerations are just the size of the school. Are you somebody who likes a lot of one-on-one attention? Do you want to be able to know your professor? You want to know them by their first name. You want them to know who you are and what your interests are. Then maybe a smaller school may be better for you. Or is your dream school something with, 50,000 students and football games and basketball games and all that constant busyness going on? Then you might want to look at a larger school. You want to see where the location is. Do you want to be in the city? Do you want to be in the country? Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be far from home? Again, these are just points of conversation you want to start having with your family. You want to make sure that it has your program. And I know that sounds like common sense, but you'd be surprised how many students we talk to who chose their college because mom went there, or dad went there, or my brother or sister went there, or I like the colors of the football team outfit, or that's my favorite basketball team, only to find out that the school doesn't offer the program that they want. Certain programs like architecture, forensic science, digital media are not offered at every single school. So you want to do your homework and make sure they have the program that you're interested in. And also resources available. You want to make sure that the school has everything that you need to be successful. Maybe you have some sort of accommodations in high school. You want to make sure those accommodations can follow you into college, because it's all about you being successful. And at the college level, you're spending a lot of time and a lot of money on those classes. You want to make sure that you do well. So again, if you need any sort of specific resources, those are things you can find out ahead of time. It is a very individual thing to choose what kind of school and which school you want to go to. So please don't decide based on what your best friend's doing or what everybody seems to be going. It's very, very individual. So you want to find the right fit. Now, there are financial resources available, and all three types of schools do utilize different kinds of financial aid. So I know it's early. I know that you're probably not going to, I don't know, really worry too much about this right now, but there are certain myths that I just want to dispel, and there's certain facts that I just want to share with you. So the first one is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. If any of you have had other children in college, you're probably familiar with that. But if this phrase is new to you, this is an application that you provide to the federal government. It requires your household income information. And basically the federal government looks at your household size, how much income has come into the family, how many people in the family have been to college or are currently going to college. There's a whole formula involved. And the result is that they will give you a report to show you what type of financial aid you may be eligible for. Now there's gift aid, which are grants and scholarships, and then there are loans, which you have to pay back. So grants and scholarships do not need to be paid back. Loans do need to be paid back. But again, the application just gives you that opportunity to see what you may qualify for. There are a lot of myths out there that if you have a two income household, to not even bother doing the FAFSA because you won't, the result won't be that you qualify for anything, and that is not true. Currently I know a lot has to do with COVID, but the number of FAFSA applications for Pinellas County is way down. Only 33% of all seniors this year have actually applied for FAFSA. So think of all that money that is just sitting there and going to waste. There are actually grants and scholarships out there that that criteria is that you don't qualify for anything under FAFSA, but you won't know that unless you've filled out the application. So I urge you to do that, and the time to do that is any time after October 1st of your child's senior year. So again, I know that's in the future, but I just want to encourage you to apply for the FAFSA because it opens the doors to a lot of other opportunities as well. The Florida Student Scholarship and Grant Program, that is the program that oversees Bright Futures and several other Florida-based scholarship programs. So that is something you want to complete as well. Speaking of Bright Futures, I'm sure that's been in the paper this week too, but it looks like it's still intact. And Bright Futures does require certain number of community service hours. So if you start those hours now or this summer when you don't have as much going on, each year you're going to progress is going to get busier and busier. So if you wait until you're a junior and senior in high school to even start thinking about doing these community service hours, it's going to be more difficult. Do it now. There's a lot of fun things you can do to volunteer. You can talk with your guidance counselor about that, but I encourage you to get that over with now that you don't have so much on your plate. And again, I talked about scholarships and grants are gift money. Loans you have to pay back, but right now the federal government is giving the lowest interest for loans. And then another option is work study. Almost every school has a work study program where the funding comes from the federal government, but you have a part-time job at the school. And that way it's convenient, you're already on campus, and you can work supporting the school as well. So these are just some of the options that you'll have to pay that school bill. So I know I covered lots and lots of stuff. I'm going to stop for a minute and just see if anybody has any questions or if any questions came through.
There are some questions in the chat. So the first question is, can you go beyond a doctoral degree?
Oh, Danica, how would you answer that?
I can answer that question.
Okay.
So a lot of, I guess, programs of study, which are just the different fields in which you can get a degree in, have what are called terminal degrees. And what that basically means is that there is an end to how much education you can get in a specific field. So in terms of a program offering a doctoral degree, usually if you're going into a specific field, a doctoral degree is the highest level of degree that you can receive. However, a lot, or not a lot, there are people who are very interested in college and learning and studying and are lifelong learners. So they may get a doctoral degree in one field and then decide to go back to college and either get another doctoral degree or a different degree in something else. So you can always get more education. It's just there may be a limit to how much education you can get in a specific field.
Good explanation. I would just add too that, and this is something we usually go into more so at our sophomore or junior workshops, but it's very, very common these days for people to have a variety of credentials in a variety of skills, because that's just where the job force is leaning these days.
So the next question is, when you apply from an AA to a four-year school, do you have to submit additional resume type information? Are they still looking for high school activities or just activities while getting the AA?
No, actually, they're looking at how successful you've been in your college level classes. So there may be, depending on the major you're going into, there may be some additional requirements. For example, if USF has a highly competitive digital graphic arts program, so you would need to submit a portfolio and see if you're chosen for that program. But it does help if you're involved in things in college, you're going to want to continue to be involved in things. So I would say stay involved. You may not need it to get into the college, but I think there are much more opportunities for you to be involved in organizations and clubs. And that's where you're really going to figure out who you are and what your interests are. And that's where you're going to connect with other people who are like-minded as well. So usually it is not, to answer your question, is not required for admission, but it is a good idea to just continue those activities.
Thank you, Sandy. The next question, which also came with an answer, is there a course or a college for real estate? And the answer that was provided in the chat is that Florida State has a real estate program. Are you aware of any other courses or options for those interested in going into real estate?
There are many schools have a course that leads you and prepare you for the licensure. It is not required to get your real estate license. You can take, a real estate course with a local, I don't even know if they're accredited, but you can just take a course and get your license. But when you go through a program, you're also going to learn a lot of business skills and marketing skills. So it's more than just the legal paperwork for real estate. So, and there are a lot of schools that offer those programs.
Okay, the next question, which I could answer, tonight, will you be covering the options for earning college credit while in high school? Yes, we will. I think that's the next topic that will be discussed.
It is.
Does South Florida offer mechanical engineering?
Yes, they do. It is offered currently at our Tampa campus.
And then for clarity, so another 4 years after doctoral, you just still get the same thing. There isn't another name higher than doctoral. No, there isn't. So once you receive a doctoral degree, you're pretty much considered to be an expert in the field that you've studied. Like Sandy mentioned before, the higher you go up in education, it becomes very specialized. So for example, I have a master's degree in higher education, which means that the entire time that I was in that program, the only thing I studied was higher education. So if I were to go back and get a doctoral degree, I would not only learn more about higher education, but I would pick a very narrow, very specific aspect of higher education that I would want to study, and then I would be considered an expert in that aspect. So once you get a doctoral degree, they're pretty much that's the ceiling for a specific area of study. The next question is, does internship hours in a technical high school also count as community service for Bright Futures, and et cetera?
You would really need to check with your guidance counselor. I understand that there are specific requirements for the service learning. So it's not just volunteering, it's learning something from the experience. So I would check with your high school guidance counselor. They will be able to, and actually they need to approve what you use for Bright Futures. So before you even start going out there to volunteer, talk with your guidance counselor first.
Okay, and before I get to the rest of the questions, we have a hand. So I want to make sure that Matthew has a chance to ask his question.
Okay.
Yeah, so would it be better for my son to take like all honors classes and maybe struggle and fail or get B's and C's, or would it be better for him to take, you know, one honors class and get A's in regular courses, or is it better to take all regular classes and ace all of those and not take any honors classes? I'm trying to understand the importance of honors classes versus not honors classes, and maybe the course load, and or just trying to gauge that.
I'm going to have Danica add in because she'll probably have some as well. As was said before, you want to make sure that your student's going to be successful. So if it is a subject matter that your student struggles in, I would probably be hesitant for that higher rigorous course. Personally, I think a combination of the two is probably best. When you take an honors course, it does raise your GPA for admission purposes into a university, as well as a dual enrollment or an advanced placement course. They do get higher grade points for the higher level work. But in the same manner, if that student does not do well in that specific course, it can pull the GPA down as well. Danica, do you want to add it to that?
Yes, so I agree with what Sandy said. I think to start out, it's probably a good idea to have a mixture, maybe on the lower end first to, you know, allow your child to become acclimated with the higher rigor of the course, because I think that's also something that students may not consider, is that these classes will be harder, they will be challenging, they may require more study time, more homework. I would also mention that in terms of rigorous classes, that the reason why we caution it is because certain rigorous courses have, in a sense, a detriment to them. Specifically, dual enrollment is starting your student's college transcript. So if they get an F and that's the only class that they took, they now have a 0.0 college GPA, which will then be reviewed, and that will basically, I guess, warn an admissions counselor that they are not capable of being successful in college, which we would note that that's not necessarily true. So I think it's more so understanding where are they at currently and having a conversation with them of, do you think that if you have 3 classes as your caseload, in addition to the regular classes that you have, how comfortable are you to do this work? Or is, you know, where should we start this process at? And then staying in communication with them in terms of moving forward. Do we want to add more to your plate, or is this enough? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so if he's strong in, you know, English and science and maybe not so strong in math or another subject, maybe start with one course, make sure he's able to handle that, and then the following year amp it up maybe to 2 courses and just set him up for success and not failure.
Yes.
I agree. And talk it over with his guidance counselor too, you know, get their input based on past successes.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
And then we have another hand from Jacob.
So I'm in 9th grade right now, and like my dad said, just with all that honors courses and everything like that, if I have 5 honors courses right now, would it look detrimental to colleges or anything like that if I dropped maybe 2 or 3 of my honors courses because I thought those were too hard?
That's something you really want to talk to your guidance counselor, because I would want to ask you a lot of questions about what the struggles were, what the challenges were. You are just a freshman, so that's you know, you're at the beginning and you're trying to figure things out, but you want to set yourself up for success in the future. So as you go through, you can make those decisions. Having 5 honors classes in your freshman year, I'm sure that's challenging, because just being acclimated to high school from middle school is a challenge too. So I would really sit down with my guidance counselor and talk about each class and what was challenging with the class, and kind of be strategic about what you want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have a few more questions in the chat. So the next question is a doctoral
I have a
degree?
question.
Sorry.
Nope.
Go ahead.
I'm not in the chat, and I raised my hand. I just don't want to be missed to ask 2 questions, if I could. I'm sorry, I joined the meeting late, so I apologize.
Oh,
to
no
everyone.
worries.
My son's a senior, and he's getting ready to graduate. He's already done his enrollment to UCF, and he's wanting to go into forensic pathology, which I believe that would be a 4-year course at UCF in biology, correct? And then he would transfer to finish his courses into UCF, because he would need his medical degree from there on out.
Say that again. He's going into forensic biology?
He's going into forensic pathology.
Okay.
So UCF offered a 4-year degree in biology, which is his foundation. And then from what I understand, then he would have to take his MCAT and then transfer to UCF once he's accepted into the medical program to finish that path. If I'm correct in stating that?
That is one path. I will do a little bit of research during the next presentation, and I'll get you back to that, because I know UCF also has a 4-year degree in forensic sciences. What is the ultimate career? He wants to be a pathologist?
He wants to be a forensic pathologist. He wants to open up the dead people and figure out why they died.
Okay. All right. Let me, I'm going to do a little bit more info on that, because off the top of my head, I can't just, I'm not sure if he needs the medical school or if he needs the bachelor program. So I will get back to you. What is your name?
My name's Paula.
Okay, Paula, before the end of tonight, you will have that answer.
Okay, and then one other quick question for the Bright Futures. Once he takes he's taking a second ACT to up his scores, and that's going to be at the beginning of June. At what point then do we apply for the Bright Futures?
You actually want to apply now. This is your senior you're talking about?
Yeah, he's getting ready to graduate in 3 months. He's taken the SAT twice, and he's waiting for his scores this week to see where he falls into the parameter of medallion or up. And then he's retaking his ACT June 12th.
Okay, so you want
apply now?
Yeah, he would apply now, and then you would just add the new score to the application as soon as it's done. So this way he has a file, everything's there. He can just update it with any new score.
Okay, thank you. I very much appreciate you guys' time.
You're welcome.
So the next question, lots of questions. That's always good. We're always happy to answer questions. Is a doctoral degree mainly if you want to be a doctor? No. So as Sandy kind of mentioned earlier, a doctoral degree is just the highest level that you can go. So a doctoral degree could mean that you have a PhD in biology, for example, but you can also go into an MD, which is a separate type of program. So if you're trying to be a medical doctor, what you would do is go to college for your 4-year degree. And then once you complete your 4-year degree, you would apply to a medical school as well as take your MCAT. So that would be the route that you take. So it's still considered a doctor degree, but I don't know that it's a little different. Yeah. So the wording is always weird, but to become a doctor, you would go get an MD, not a PhD. The next question that we have is, what is the GPA that USF is looking for, which was also answered in the chat. I appreciate the chat support. So the answer was that USF is looking for a 3.97, which sounds very daunting. Sorry, Sandy, I know you're supposed to be answering questions.
No, you go right ahead.
But something that I always like to mention, because we do get asked lots of questions about USF's admissions, and we work pretty closely with USF's admissions, is that it's important that if you plan to go to USF, one, that you are aware of the admissions criteria, but two, that you understand how early that you can apply. So admissions applications usually open the summer before your senior year. And something that the admissions counselors often tell us as PATHe counselors is that if you really want to get into USF, and you may not have that exact 3.97 or higher, but you have something that's close to, is one, considering which semester that you're applying for. So we all have the idea that college or school starts in the summer or in the fall, meaning that you start school in August. That's not always true. You can apply for school in the summer, meaning that as soon as you graduate high school, you may have a few weeks or a few months off, but then you start college before August. And another option is that you start college in the spring. So you take off the fall and you start the spring. The spring and summer options for starting college tend to have a lower GPA. They don't usually publish exactly what it is, so I can't tell you the specifics, but I've always been told it's a lower GPA. And then another thing to consider is the earlier you apply, the higher your chances are at being admitted, because you're being compared to who's applying with you. And normally people wait until either the start of their senior year or a little bit after to start applying for college. So if you apply earlier, you may have a higher chance. And I think that may be a practice across a few different schools and not just solely USF. The next question is, if they get low grades in 9th grade, is there a way to do some kind of credit boost to increase GPA?
Basically just getting good grades. If they get low grades as a freshman, you want to talk to your guidance counselor. You want to figure out some kind of strategy. Why were the grades low? You want to look at your study habits and how much effort you put into them. So there's not like an instant boost. If you failed a course, you want to retake the course. And I believe in high school, there is grade replacement. So the new grade would replace the older grade. So it's really something you want to talk to your guidance counselor to create that strategy. As I understand it, guidance counselors have a huge caseload, so don't wait for that guidance counselor to come find you. You reach out to the guidance counselor to set up a time to create that strategy.
Okay, the next question, which adds to the previous question, is can you do better in 9th grade, in 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade to help yourself if your grades are poor in 9th grade? Yes. So because it's an average, and luckily you all are starting at the 9th grade, you still have a chance to overcome what has happened in these past semesters. So taking into account, like Sandy said, what didn't work for you as a 9th grader, to consider how can you be a better student as a 10th grader. If it is something such as you were really bored in your classes and you feel that you weren't being challenged, then maybe it's a conversation, which may seem weird to a guidance counselor, that you try a more rigorous course. And sprinkling some of those rigorous courses into your class schedule, again, if you are comfortable and if you feel that you're able to do the work, may also be a way to increase your grades, because those classes are a weighted GPA, which means that they operate on a slightly higher GPA scale. So if you get an A in an honors class, it holds a little bit more weight than getting an A in a regular class. But again, as Sandy mentioned, it's always important to have a conversation with your guidance counselor and keep your guidance counselor in the loop in terms of your goals and where you are, and finding that way to bridge the gap of where you are to where you want to be. The next question is, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, can I follow up to what you had said about credit recovery? If they don't, because that was my question. You said that if they fail, they can do credit recovery. Are they able to do credit recovery if they get a C or a D in order to boost up that grade, or no?
And honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I don't want to give you false information. So that would have to be a question to your guidance counselor.
Okay.
The next question is, if I take calculus in high school, would I have to take it in college?
The answer is yes, unless you're taking a dual enrollment college course of calculus. So yes, high school calculus and college calculus are two different courses. However, by taking it in high school, statistics show that you will be more successful in college. The same goes for some other rigorous courses like anatomy and physiology. If you're looking to get into nursing or something like that, to take it at the high school level, it gives you a really strong foundation for when you take it in college.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I will also add that it depends on what you want to study. If you're planning on going into humanities or maybe a certain type of social science, you may not have to take super high levels of college math. So for example, my bachelor's degree is in English. I had to take one math class, which is college algebra. So if you plan on going into a science or math heavy field, then yes, you will need to take college calculus. If you are not going into a math heavy field, you may not need to.
True. Thank you, Danique.
No problem. I liked the fact that I only had to take one college math class and I never had to take it again. The next question is it possible to complete the volunteer hours in another country during the summer, as I'm always traveling outside of the United States during summer vacation?
All right, good question. And I know I keep saying guidance counselor. We're much more college experts than high school experts, but your guidance counselor has a specific form that Bright Futures provides. So there's certain criteria that this service has to fall into. I don't believe it has to be done in the country, but you're going to want to have an agreement with your counselor as to what this service will be and how you will document it. So again, check with your guidance counselor. They're the experts. They have to sign off as to whether the service will be accepted or not. So the sooner you meet with them, the better. But there are plenty of organizations that are worldwide. So I can't imagine that you can find something you could do overseas.
Okay, we will ask one more question and then we will move on to the earning college credit in high school. And Justin, I do see your question. We will answer that. So the next question is getting an associate's degree or higher for a career path that does not necessarily call for one, like becoming a police officer, something you should do?
I'm going to give you my opinion. I think getting a college education while you're young is going to give you security for the future. If you look into, let's say it is a police officer, you can get an associate's degree that includes the police academy training, and therefore you've got a 2-year degree going into the academy. If you decide to go for a promotion, maybe you want to be a detective or an inspector or go on for something else, you already have that 2 years under your belt. So I think it just gives you more security and it gives you the opportunity for advancement where others that just went through the police academy may not be eligible for.
Thank you, Sandy. And now we're going to turn it over to Charlotte, who will be discussing earning college credit while you're in high school.
Okay, excuse me. Hi, guys. Yeah, so I'm Charlotte. I'm the intern here at Pinellas Access to Higher Education, and I'll be talking to you guys about earning college credit in high school. These are definitely amazing opportunities. Just going over tuition and everything, it's really a great opportunity to save some money and do college. So let's start. Yeah, so there are plenty of ways to earn college credit during high school, and we're going to go through quite a few of those. We're going to cover dual enrollment, advanced placement, IB and Cambridge programs, collegiate high school, early college, and early admissions. So for dual enrollment is a great program. It is either a part-time program or a full-time program, meaning you can take as few or as many classes as you want. If you want to take one class at St. Petersburg College throughout all your high school career, you can absolutely do that, or you can take 20. And basically how it works is you will still be enrolled in the current school that you enrolled in, whether that be Gibbs High School, a private school, a home school, but you will also be taking classes at St. Petersburg College. The program gives you free tuition and textbooks, which is an incredible deal. Some dual enrollment classes also can be taken at high schools, which is kind of interesting. So basically, if you have a teacher at your high school who's qualified to teach at the college level, they may work through SPC to teach that class. So you will still be getting a St. Petersburg College credit, but it will be taught at your high school and you don't have to go to St. Petersburg College. And we're also going to talk about academic versus career credit. So academic credit for dual enrollment are classes like math, science, composition, anything that would be already required for like your high school education classes. Career credits are more like electives or specific technical training. So let's say you wanted to take an Adobe Photoshop class. That would be considered a career credit. And this varies a bit. This is actually important to consider when applying for dual enrollment, and we'll talk about that more in just a second. And the cool thing about dual enrollment is that it's offered at all SBC campuses. There should be an SBC campus pretty close to you, so it's pretty close. Okay, so requirements for dual enrollment. You need to be in 10th grade. You can do it earlier under special circumstances, but typically it does start in 10th or 11th grade. You can also start in 12th grade, of course, but that's, when you can start applying is 10th grade. And to be eligible for academic dual enrollment classes, like your math, your science, your English, you need to have an unweighted GPA of 3.0. Unweighted means that it doesn't take into consideration any honors classes, because honors classes, they will have half a GPA point higher. So if you get a B in an honors class, that'll be a 3.5 on your GPA as opposed to a 3.0. They don't consider that when you're applying for dual enrollment. So that's something to keep in mind. And then for career dual enrollment classes, like those technical certifications and stuff like that, you need a GPA of a 2.0. And before you do this, you also have to complete placement testing, either the PERT, SAT, or ACT, prior to obtaining permission to take the courses. Now, the PERT exam is a unique one because it's not typically used for university admissions. It's actually a test that you can take for free for your first time at St. Petersburg College. And in a way, it's kind of low stress because it doesn't count towards those admissions or scholarships. And so it's a good way for you to just sit for a test and gauge where you are at in regards to college level classes. So it's kind of a low stress way to do that. And next, we're going to talk about advanced placement. So advanced placement classes are offered through your high school. St. Petersburg College does not have anything to do with advanced placement. And the class itself does not give you the college credit. It's the exam at the end. The exams are scaled on a 1 to 5 scale. And typically, you would need a 3 or 4 or higher to get college credit. So, and in a way, this can be a good thing, and in another way, this can kind of be a bad thing if you're not a good test taker, but we'll talk about the pros and cons of advanced placement in just a second. And so for this one, the requirements are fairly easy. Just talk to your guidance counselor about enrolling in AP classes next year. Okay, so IB and Cambridge programs, just a fair disclaimer, these typically start in 9th grade. There are some options to switch over in 10th grade, which is why we kept it in the presentation. But just so you're aware, they are full-time programs offered at certain Pinellas County schools, and they are very similar to AP classes, except it's like an AP program in a way, because you will be taking a lot of vigorous IB or Cambridge program classes, and you will have to take those tests at the end to officially get college credit for them. But the cool thing about this is that both programs have agreements with Bright Futures so that you will get the highest scholarship, and so that will fund your college tuition. Let's see. And the requirements for that, you have to complete an application through the Pinellas County school system. And beyond that, the specifics of can you switch over in 10th grade? What GPA do you need? That varies a lot based on the school and whether it's IB or Cambridge. So I highly recommend just speaking to your counselor and Pinellas County schools about that. Okay, and then collegiate high school. Collegiate high school is a full-time 3-year or 2-year program, either starting in 10th or 11th grade, and it's held at St. Petersburg College. So if you start in 10th grade, you would complete 10th grade with high school level classes on an SPC campus, and then you would complete 11th and 12th grade with college level classes still at SPC. And then you get free tuition and textbooks, and it's offered at the St. Pete Gibbs or Tarpon Springs campus. Let's see. And the requirements for this, you need to actually be attending a public high school or an approved private or home education program prior to enrolling. So that is something to keep in mind if any of you are in private school or homeschooled. That is something that you need to get sorted out before you'd enroll. And then you also need to participate in an information webinar. You need an unweighted GPA of a 3.0. And another interesting one, you need to have finished your Algebra 1 end of course exam, because that's something they don't that they don't offer Algebra 1 at the collegiate high school. So it's good to get that one out of the way. And again, you'll need adequate PERT scores. And so I want to take a moment to discuss PERT scores. You may be looking at this going, oh my goodness, I need a 100 in math. That's all the right answers. PERT scores are based out of a max score of 150. So when you see this 100, that's 100 right questions out of 150. So that's like a 66%. So it's not as scary as it sounds. Early college. Early college is very similar to collegiate high school, except it only starts in 11th grade. And so it's a 2-year-long program. It's offered at the Clearwater, Seminole, and Tarpon Spring campuses. And again, it gives you free tuition and textbooks. And again, it's a full-time program. You would be taking all your classes at St. Petersburg College. The requirements for this, you would again need an unweighted GPA of 3.0. You would need to take one of the standardized tests. And for these, you would also have to take physical education, geometry, and world history because SPC can't satisfy those specific credits required for graduating high school. Like they don't offer physical ed classes or anything like that. And again, private and homeschool students, you would need to be enrolled in a public high school prior to participating. So if that's a deal breaker, dual enrollment might be a very good similar option for that. Early admissions, it's very similar to early college, except that it starts in 12th grade and it's 1 year long. And it's offered at the Clearwater, Seminole, St. Pete Gibbs, and Tarpon Spring campuses. And that also gives you free tuition and textbooks. Now these, of course, you need to be enrolled and attended a Pinellas County High School for the full semester prior to the start of early admissions. You need to have completed 3 years of high school and 18 credits earned. So that's typically where you would be at after your junior year anyway. And you need to have a 3.0 or higher. You need to have the standardized tests. And again, you need physical education, geometry, and world history, but you also need biology credit as well. And you would need all standardized tests taken. So like FCAT exams, stuff like that. You would need to have all of those finished. Okay, and we're going to talk about special considerations, and we already kind of started this discussion with the Q&A, but an important thing to keep in mind is that when you take a dual enrollment course, that isn't just going towards your high school GPA, that will also be affecting your college GPA. So let's say I'm a junior in college, let's say in 10th grade, I dual enrolled in a class and I failed it. That would still be showing on my record now as a junior in college because it's considered a college level credit and it's at the same college I currently attend. So if that is a concern for you, I would recommend, so if that's a concern and you still want to take college level classes, I would recommend trying something like an advanced placement class because that way, if for some reason you completely fail the AP exam, that will not impact your college GPA. You just won't be getting college credit for it. So that's something important to keep in mind. However, However, another option is to just try one dual enrollment class because if your grade in a dual enrollment class isn't necessarily the best, it won't be the end of the world because however, that is something you want to talk about with your parents and your school counselor just to see what your specific goals are and what you think you should try during your high school years. So that covers earning college credit in high school. Now, do you all have any specific questions for me? Let me check the chat. Stop sharing.
Hi, Charlotte. There is one question in the chat so far. The first question is, when you graduate from collegiate, you graduate with an AA and a high school diploma, same as early college.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Now, it doesn't happen when you do early admissions because it's only 1 year. But yeah, you have an AA degree, so you're halfway through your bachelor's degree. Any other questions?
There is a hand. Lisa, I see your hand.
So what's the difference between going to dual enrollment or like, I guess not even I understand the difference, but what would be the benefit of dual enrollment versus early college and why would you pick one over the other?
I would say personally, Sandy, do you want to answer the question?
Sure, we can both jump in. So dual enrollment is a term for taking any classes that give you college credit. So some of the high schools offer a dual enrollment class right there on the high school campus. Students have the option to take one class, maybe two classes. They can pick and choose what they want. If you sign up and commit yourself to either early college or the collegiate high school, you are only taking your junior and senior year in high school, you are only taking college level courses. So you are committing 100% to dual enrollment. So a lot has to do with how your child feels about high school as well. If they're very involved in their high school and they're really enjoying that high school experience, they may not want to leave early and go take all of their classes at the local college. So it's a personal choice. I don't know if that answers it, but again, the difference is really dual enrollment. You can take one class, you can take two classes, you could take two classes your first semester and two the second. You have a lot of options as far as how many classes. And if you're early college or collegiate high school, all of your courses are going to be at the college level.
I would also like to add, in terms of the benefit of one versus the other, with early college or collegiate, the added benefit is that you're getting an associate's degree. So it's almost a guarantee that your child will complete their high school experience with half of a bachelor's degree completed, meaning that, if they decide to continue, that they would be paying less money going forward. There's also, I guess, on the opposite side of that, though, having an understanding for that student of what comes next after high school, which isn't usually as frequently discussed. So if they are going to get an associate's degree, do they want to continue with a bachelor's degree? Do they want to stop there? So I think if a student is interested in going into collegiate or early college, being able to have those conversations now about what does that mean for you as an 18-year-old with an associate's degree? Because does that mean that, are you prepared to graduate from a 4-year degree at the age of 20? Are you prepared for what comes after this at a much earlier age than other people? And for some students, they are. For other students, they're not. Some students want to have the entire college experience where they live on campus at the same time as their friends, and they go through the stages of life at the same time as other students. And then there are students who are just like, nope, I want to get it done as soon as possible. I don't necessarily care about the quote unquote experiences. I just want to get into the next stage of life where I'm really excited to start a career. So again, it comes down to personal choice and personal preference.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
No problem. And then we have another question. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I see a hand up, but it's just a phone number, so I don't have a name. So if someone just wants to chime in with their question.
If not, we can go to the next question in the chat, which is, if you pass the placement test, will you have to take classes like math and science?
Do you want to?
So with placement tests like the PERT, basically you would still have to take math and science. Those placement tests just decide whether or not you can take college level math and science. So it would basically decide, can you take it as a dual enrolled student at SPC, or would you need to take it at the high school level? So either way, you'd still be taking those math and science classes.
Yeah, it's just, as the name of the test implies, it's what level you place in for your first courses at the college level. Any more questions for college credit during high school?
There's a question. How do four-year universities view AAs from early college?
Go ahead.
I can start. I think different schools feel differently about it. I think, for context about me personally and my own experiences with students in early colleges, I'm from Ohio. And so the Ohio education system works differently than the Florida education system. Specifically about AAs and the universities in Florida, I think something that's important to understand is that, how do I explain this? Certain students believe that, okay, I got an AA degree and I'm great. I will automatically be enrolled into a university as soon as I graduate from high school. That may not automatically be the case, because those universities will still be considering your child's high school GPA, their test scores, and then those other aspects that Sandy mentioned prior, because they're considered at the point of entry into a four-year university, if they've graduated with an AA, as still a first-time in college student, meaning that they're not considered to be a transfer student. They're not considered, they treat your child as any other student who has just finished high school and is enrolling in college. So that can be a plus if they've done really well and, you know, all the other classes that they've taken, but it can also be a minus. And I say that because I've experienced working with students who did really well in some classes, but their high school GPA wasn't necessarily up to par. So you have to make sure that they're able to balance what that looks like, because it's not an automatic guarantee that you will just, it's a box to check off and they're done. They're not going to look at anything else, because that's not true. You're still going to need to have the test scores that are needed. They're still going to look at the other aspects. Sandy, do you have anything else to include?
No, you said it very well. It's just, and it is confusing because the student may have 60 credits or 20 classes done, but the universities, since they haven't completed those courses after high school graduation, they're initially just first-time students. Doesn't mean those credits aren't going to come with them, but they still have to meet those requirements.
It says, if I take pre-AP classes in high school, will that count as an extra credit?
I'm not really sure what a pre-AP class is. If you take advanced placement classes and you get a strong grade and you score the needed score on the test, you'll get credit for those. But yeah, I'm sorry, Justin, I'm not sure what a pre-AP class is.
If I'm not mistaken, just based on how it sounds, is that it's an AP, it's a class that's going to set you up to be successful in your AP course.
Okay.
It says it's the new term for honor classes. Cool, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So yeah. The next question is, so I think going back to the previous conversation around four-year degrees and AAs, does that same thing apply for dual enrollment students? Not necessarily. And the reason why is because, Sandy, I'm gonna leave you to explain this, because I want to make sure that the terminology is explained correctly.
Well, I just want to make sure she's asking the question. So Shana had also asked, how do four-year universities view the AAs from early college? And then the same with dual enrollment. The students have those credits in their account. So they have the credits, and I don't want you to think that those credits aren't going to transfer with them. But for admission purposes, they are going to look at that high school GPA and those standard test scores. Now, having dual enrollment classes is going to boost the GPA because they do get extra quality points for those dual enrollment classes. So it will help the admission, but again, if they are just graduating high school, it's going to be based on that high school GPA and the standardized test scores.
Okay. The next question is, if I'm not in a lot of clubs, sports, etc., and I have straight A's, do I still have the opportunity to enroll in league universities? When you say league, do you mean Ivy League? What do you mean by league?
You can unmute yourself and talk if you want.
But I will answer the question at face value. Low acceptance university. Thank you. So to answer your question around your grades versus like not being involved, there are universities that may only look at your test scores and your GPA. They may not necessarily consider what you're doing outside of your classwork. So that is something that you may want to consider if you're not necessarily as interested in getting involved. However, I would recommend that you consider getting involved if there is something at your school that interests you. And I say that because students on every level tend to be more successful academically if they are involved on their high school campuses and in their college campuses. So yes, if from this point forward throughout high school, you decide, I never want to be involved in a sport, I never want to be in a club, but I am a really great student, there are schools that will accept you. And to be completely transparent, I was one of those students. I was not as involved as I could have been. I will say, though, I do regret it because outside of the college aspect, there are a lot of things as a person that you learn and you get from by being involved in school and by interacting with other people your age, especially in like a sport or club setting. The next question, if you pass an advanced placement class, will that count as a 4.5 or a 5?
For the AP classes, if you get an A in an AP class, that counts as a 5.0 on your grade point average. Honors classes are the ones that count as a 4.5 if you get an A in that class. And I believe dual enrollment is a 5.0 as well. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So when we're talking about weighted classes, the highest that you can get in an honors class is a 4.5 because every grade level or every grade is increased by 0.5. When you're talking about AP classes and dual enrollment classes, the highest that you can get is a 5, meaning that 5 is an A, a B plus is like a 4.5, a B is a 4. The next question is, when taking honors classes in high school, do you receive college credit? And if you haven't mentioned that already, I can answer that. So when you're taking honors classes, those do not count towards college credit, which is why that wasn't mentioned in Charlotte's presentation. So it is considered to be a rigorous course. So don't ever feel that, oh, I only took an honors class. Honors classes are still really great. It's just that it does not count as anything towards going to your college classes. And then the next one is, what is the most important quality to getting into UF?
Well, we're not from UF, so what I will do is before we're done, I'm going to give you a link to the State University System Counselor Guide, and basically what that does is it breaks down all of the public universities in the state of Florida, and it's going to give you the average GPA and test scores that were admitted. So it's a good guide to just see how high that bar is and what you want to aim for.
I will also add, USF. But regardless of which school, I would like to add that if you're ever curious to know how a school is looking at its students, is to visit its admissions page. If you Google search any university and then include the word admissions, it'll bring up their page and it'll show you what they're looking for. So it'll tell you if they're looking for an essay. It'll tell you if they're looking for, what you were like as an your extracurriculars in high school. It'll tell you if they only care about your GPA and your test scores. Specifically for USF, USF is a GPA test score school, meaning that when you apply to USF as a student, the only things that they will ask you for are what is your high school GPA, cumulative, and what are your test scores, either SAT or ACT. It will not ask you for letters of recommendations. It will not ask you for an essay. It will not ask you for anything else outside of how are you academically while you're in high school. That's not the same across the board. So UF would have a different possibly criteria than USF. Like specifically, UF has an essay and there are other things that they look at, but USF only grades, only test scores. Then the next question is, what is the pass rate for mechanical engineering at USF? I don't have the answer. I don't know.
I give you kudos for that question. Actually, for all these questions. As freshmen in high school and families of freshmen, this is so impressive that you are all asking all these questions. But yeah, I'm afraid at this one, we don't have that information off the top of our heads. If I get a scholarship, will I still have to apply for that school? Typically, if you are looking at a school-based scholarship, it is not offered unless you've applied to that school. So there are many different kinds of scholarships, but if there's one that is connected to a specific school, you really have only been awarded if you've already applied to that school. Okay, I'm going to let Danica take a breath. Good job, everybody. I'm just going to move on to the next, the last presentation, and then we'll be happy to take more questions. All right, let me share my screen. So we wanted to just kind of wrap up tonight's discussion with a little checklist. I think we underestimated all of you and how much homework you've done already, so kudos to you. But we do want to just give you some things, to-do list at this point in 9th grade. So these are some things, and I know we've said it during our presentations. You want to meet your high school guidance counselor. It may not be the same counselor you have every year in high school, but make that connection. They are really going to be the best ones who can look at your overall academics and give you some of the answers that were asked tonight. You want to start researching college. Again, a lot of you have already been doing that, and you've got a lot of sound information to get started. You also want to start exploring your options about your career. You probably, well, I'm not going to say that. You may not know exactly what you want to do, but you may have some idea of it, or you may have no idea whatsoever what it is you want to do career-wise. So now's the time to really start noticing what your interests are. What subjects excite you? What are you passionate about? What are the things you want to change about the world? Just going through this past year and the quarantine has opened our eyes to so many things. Think about how you want to make an impact in the world, and that can help lead you to your career decision. Taking challenging courses, getting involved in activities and clubs, keep track of your credentials. It's easy to think, oh, I'm a freshman, I don't need to write any of this down, I'll remember it. Keep a folder, a notebook, something, and take notice of everything you're involved in or the questions you have right now. The biggest thing is to talk about it. Talk to your friends, talk to your guidance counselor, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors, but have these conversations now, and you're going to really have a great idea of what it is you want to do later. So as I said, meeting with your guidance counselor is so important. They have the inside scoop on how well you did in middle school, what you're doing in high school, what your specific high school has to offer that you may not be aware of. And if you really click with your guidance counselor, these may be the people that give you reference letters later on when you're applying to colleges. Some colleges want recommendation letters. So it may be your guidance counselor who really gets to know you, and they may give you some great advice about planning for your future. Can't get my thing. We talked about rigorous courses. We talked about the pros and the cons. So don't take a rigorous course just for the sake of having a rigorous course on your transcript. Make sure that you're eligible and you're set to succeed. You're willing to put in the work to get good grades in those courses. And we talked about setting yourself up for college credit while you're in high school. There's a great website, and it's called Florida Shines. It's just floridashines.org, and it's got an array of resources from career planning to college research. So this is just a free site on the state of Florida that can really help you explore a lot of the questions that we talked about tonight. And get involved. This came up several times tonight. If you're not involved in anything, think about what interests you have. What might you want to get involved in? Freshman year is a great time to just assess, what do I like to do? What clubs may I enjoy? So once you decide on what you like, take the time to see what opportunities you have to get involved with other people who like these things as well. It opens up just a whole new door for you. It may be part of the school, or it may be part of your church or a synagogue or just a community center, but there's lots of ways to get involved and connected with people who have the same interests that you do. And again, we talked about just keeping track of everything. Your awards, your activities, any volunteer hours, whether you're using them for Bright Futures or not. And it may be something as simple as just having a notebook. that you keep in a drawer, and you start putting in any awards and things. When it comes time to applying for colleges, you'll be really happy that you did, because you'll have everything in one place. And start talking to each other. Do you know what your mom or dad does for a living? Do you actually know what the course of the day contains? Do you have, an aunt or an uncle that has an interesting job, but you don't really know what it is? Really start talking. People like to talk about what they do, and they like to talk about themselves. So start these conversations now. And as I said, you're going to have so much information when it comes time to make your own decisions. You'll be really grateful that you did. Some of the topics of discussion could be just college in general. What do you hope to get out of it, and what fears do you have about it? It's a little scary thinking about moving away from home, or maybe you want to be close to home. So definitely just have these conversations. And money is another thing. I'll share another story. I was working with a student last year who only was going to apply to one school. And as a rule, we try to have students at least have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. But this student only was going to apply to one school. He knew he was going to get in. He had met all the criteria that he read about. And then we talked about scholarships and money. And he knew his parents were going to take care of it. So he didn't want my help whatsoever. And sure enough, come January, he got accepted into the school of his dreams. I was so happy about it. But it wasn't until he got that acceptance letter that the conversation about paying for school came up with his family. And little did he know, they were not planning on paying for the college. He had to pay for school himself. And so it was a very stressful few months of searching for scholarships and looking at ways to pay for school, because he assumed his parents were taking care of it, and his parents assumed he had done all his homework. So again, the earlier you have these conversations, the better prepared you're going to be. So again, these are just some things that you can do now. And speaking of money, I meant to mention that there are scholarships that you can start applying for now. If you go to the Pinellas County Schools website, there is a page on financial aid and scholarships, and there's a great monthly scholarship list, and it is not just for seniors. Scholarships can be as early as freshmen, and these you can just bank all the way till your college admissions. So it's never too early to start looking for scholarships. All right, let's look for questions.
I have a question. Hello?
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. My son, his AVA teacher in the school that he goes to works with USF, and he's already applied to the colleges. When does the acceptance letters approximately come out if he's accepted to the college?
USF has a rolling admission, so they send out different letters on a monthly basis. So the last letters will go out, Danica, help me, April?
Yeah, the last letters tend to go out around April, because they usually want you to decide which school you're going to around May 1st through May 15th.
Mm-hmm. So it's a rolling admission. There is not one specific date. I think each month they're sending out another group of admission letters. Okay,
so we should be on the lookout for it, since he's already applied and sent in everything he needs for the school, correct?
Yep. And just check his admissions portal and make sure all the checklist items have been completed.
Okay, and that would be on the USF portal website?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, the admissions counselors tend to be really helpful. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to an admissions counselor. They'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would I find that on the webpage, is the admissions counselor, and then have one of them give us a call back if we have any questions?
Yep, Absolutely. Just look for, when you go on the USF website, look for that word admissions, and it'll give you the checklist items, and it'll give you contact emails and phone numbers.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, we have some more questions. The next question that we have is, what is the correlation between Bright Futures and the IB or Cambridge high school programs?
Well, Bright Futures is an actual scholarship program. So you meet a certain criteria, and the Bright Futures scholarship would be awarded toward your tuition when you take classes at the college. IB, do you want to go over IB, Charlotte? Or?
Well, I'd like to ask something. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, I'm trying to double check this. But if you complete an IB program and get a full IB degree or diploma, that qualifies you for Bright Futures as well. I don't know if it's the medallion or the academic one, but it's supposed to like help you bypass some of the other things.
Yeah, so it actually, I was just doing the research, and I'm going to send some links from Pinellas County School into the chat just so you have that to cross-reference. But so with IB and Cambridge, if you do 100 hours of community service on top of completing those diplomas, you will automatically be qualified for the Florida Academic Scholarship, which I believe is the 100%. So yeah, so I'm going to send those links, but we already have the first one.
Charlotte, I actually have a question. Does that omit the volunteer service as well?
It does not. You would still need to get 100 hours.
It's the academic criteria.
Yeah, it omits the academic. So like if you got like a 28 on the ACT or something, you would still qualify even though it's a point below.
Got it. Thanks. Learning something too.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that either before Charlotte mentioned it, and then I looked it up. The next question is, if I got offered to play football for college, would I have to pay for school? It depends. So you may be invited to join the football team. That does not necessarily guarantee that they're offering you a scholarship. So you would have to be very clear on what that exactly looks like, because sometimes there are students who are on the football team for colleges and universities. That does not mean they're being that their tuition or anything is being covered for that. The next question is, if your parents are divorced, how does that affect the FAFSA eligibility for income?
The FAFSA form will walk you through. They will ask you questions about what household you live in, who supports you. A lot is connected with the taxes that they file with the IRS. Sometimes you may be living with a parent who has sole support, which means financially they are providing 100% of your support. And in that case, you would only report that parent's income. But if each parent provides a certain percentage of support for you, then they would both. So the form kind of walks you through it, so you'll know how to fill it out. But if you have questions, you can always ask a financial aid advisor at St. Petersburg College, even if you're not going there. But typically it's based on how taxes are filed and what parent you are dependent of.
Thank you, Sandy. The next question is, how do you receive the scholarship through Bright Futures, like by community service, and how? So Bright Futures is going to consider your GPA. So there is a GPA that they're looking for. They're also looking for a specific test score, either through the ACT or SAT. And then there are a number of community service hours that you have to complete. So for example, if you want the highest level of Bright Futures, you'd have to complete about 100 community service hours between, I guess, now and the time that you graduate from high school, with the approval of your guidance counselor. And for specifics, I'm going to find the actual website that has all of that information and share that with you. I know it's somewhere. But do we have any more questions? If not, I'm going to wrap up. There's another question. Does IB/Cambridge programs give college credit as well? Yes, they do. So it's like Charlotte mentioned. So IB and Cambridge are two separate programs. So there's IB, which is International Baccalaureate Program, and then there's the Cambridge program, which is also called ACE. For either of those programs, in order to get the credit, you have to not only complete the classwork, but you then have to take a like end of term test to get the actual credit.
I have actually added the State University admission guide, the link to the admission guide. So if you do want to check on the average admission SAT scores or ACT scores or GPA, you can access it here. And I am also going to provide a link. We ask you to just provide us some feedback. And we have a very short survey. Sorry, I'm typing and talking here. That we would like you to take a moment and fill out. It helps us know that we're providing the information you're looking for, or if we've missed something. We will continue to provide these workshops, so we hope you'll follow along as your student goes from freshman to sophomore to junior to senior. And as Danica shared earlier, you can reach out to us individually, but the only way that we know that we're providing accurate information is to be able to get some feedback from you. So I have put that in the chat as well.
Yes. In addition to that, I'm going to also share some links. I'm going to wait a little bit just so that they're not confused. But a link that I'm going to share is our website. So it is stpetersburg.usf.edu/PATHe. If you would like more information about us as PATHe counselors or the ways that we can assist you, that's definitely there. And then more specifically, if you would like to have another conversation with us or just